Hello, friends. Welcome to the Nope Coach podcast. I'm your host, Suzanne Kohlberg, joined today by Laura Gates-Lupton, and we are going to discuss a new offering we've put together. So before you turn it off and go, oh, they're just trying to sell us some shit, whether or not you decide to join the offering, I think this will be a valuable conversation because we're talking about procrastination and in having the best of intentions, and whether we're coming through the lens of business because we're both small business owners or solopreneurs, or the words always get me, but this could apply across multiple areas of our life. I'll get it later. I'll get fit later. I'll save to buy my house later. I will reconnect with the estranged person later. And this, as a result of this, we've created, an offering, and we hope that you join us. But yeah, I think this will be a valuable use of your time to listen to this discussion today, whether or not you join us. So, Laura, where do we want to start?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe we should just talk about where we came up with this idea.
So basically, we're going to talk through the frame of small business and online. From my experience, and I'm interested to hear yours as well, and for those of you listening, think through yours. There's a never-ending list of things that you could do, and there's the never-ending list of people who will tell you what you could do. Like, the more successful my business has come, the more emails I get about, you need to be on the first page of Google, and you need SEO, and you need a website that converts, and you need YouTube thumbnail covers, and you need. So not only is there a world of people telling you all the things that you need to do, there's also the things that you decide to embark on. It's like I've bought a course about SEO. I've maybe bought more than one course about SEO because, by magically buying the course, people are going to find me, right? And this is how did we start talking about it? Like, the difference between buying the thing and actually making the time and space to go through it. Do you remember we started
I
talking
don't
about this
remember exactly how we
time
started
ago?
talking about it, but I remember that we were talking about how we see this with our clients, and then we admitted we see it in ourselves too. Um, that we both have these projects or courses that we bought with the best of intentions and with a dream, really. It's like the dream of, oh, it'd be awesome if this happens in my business, right? But I need to do this course in order to make it happen. But then we don't make the time to do it. That's what I remember from how we were like, oh, we should create something around that. And we both need it.
Yeah. And I think, in my opinion, I'm not saying this is the facts of the universe, but we think that there are these people who entirely have their shit together, and we just need to find the right person with the right system, and then magically we'll have our shit together. And I just don't think that exists. I think we're all some level of fucked up. Some of us just hide it better. And to have a space where it's like, okay, this is what I'm working on, and I'm actually going to work on it. Not, this is what I'm working on. Oh, I'm just going to scroll my email and then look, there's another thing that I could buy. Because I'm also an avid reader, which I know you are too. And
Yeah.
someone said to me once, and it's so true, buying books and reading books are two totally separate hobbies. And I think
Yeah,
it's the same with courses.
it
Buying
is.
courses, and then you can kind of give yourself an out because you're like, I'm sure the magical SEO course would have worked, but I'm the person who just didn't actually get my shit together enough to do it. So, sometimes the things aren't what they promise, but we don't know if we don't actually sit down and work through it.
It's true. Well, and we lie to ourselves, it's like I have a writer's circle on Thursday mornings to write my newsletter. I have other entrepreneurs join me for that. And I think, like, on the weeks when I don't have it for some reason, I think, oh, I'll get it done. Do I get it done? Almost never. It's like I actually truly need that circle of people waiting for me. And I show up and I stay in my seat because I'm leading it, for one thing. And I get my newsletter done. But if they weren't there, it's easy for me to think, oh, there's something else I'm supposed to do, wander away.
I think
I
that's the thing.
need
Left
that.
to our own devices, for some of us who identify as procrastinators, ex-procrastinators, recovering procrastinators, there's nothing wrong with working out what works for you. So, for example, I'm very fortunate that I live across the road from a gym. Like, I have no excuse. I can walk there. It doesn't even take 5 minutes. If I don't book into a class, I don't go. Or if I
Yeah.
do go, I kind of just half-ass it, or I hang around in the cafeteria and have a chai latte and look at the other people on the treadmills and go, I kind of worked out. Do you know what I mean? Like, I know that for me, I need to be in a space that the person at the front doesn't even really need to tell me what to do. Like, some of the classes I attend, they're not spoken. Like, you don't have the instructor yelling at you. I actually like them better. I know what to do. I just don't do it on my own. So that's
Right.
why we've created with this, called it Shelf to Success, Rescuing Courses from Digital Limbo. I just love that title, because it's not another course. We're not going to teach you time hacks. We're not going to teach you, we're not, for lack of a better way, full transparency, we're not going to teach you anything. But what we are going to do is hold the space for you to actually implement the things that you already have, so that you actually do them. It's the same as when I go to the gym. I literally don't need a one-on-one personal trainer standing over going, do 20 uppercuts. But I go to the class so that I do the stuff, because left to my own devices, I will either half-ass it, or I'll just do something else and kind of tell myself, like, be honest, Laura, like, have you ever told yourself you were working, but you like, I'm doing market research or some bullshit reason, but you're really just kind of scrolling?
Oh, well, like I tried to start my Substack months ago, and it kept saying coming soon because I kept reading everybody else's Substacks to get ideas. So yes, yes, I
So
am guilty as
Tad
charged.
Hargrave from Marketing for Hippies, awesome. Check his stuff out if you haven't already. It's how Laura and I originally connected. I remember him saying once, he used a unicycle as example. It's so absurd, it's always stuck with me. He goes, the worst way to learn to ride a unicycle is to watch YouTube videos about riding a unicycle, is to read books about unicycle, is to journal about how one day you're going to be the world's best unicyclists. The best way to learn to ride a unicycle is to get on and pedal. And I think
Yeah.
we do that. We're like, I want, as you said, I want to create a Substack. I want SEO. I'd love leads to just fall into my lap. But instead of doing the work to work out how to make a Substack or to tinker around with SEO and see what happens, instead it was like, well, if I can't do it perfectly, so procrastination and perfectionism are kind of like terrible bedfellows.
Yes, they're very linked. I agree.
So if you have a course that you've bought, if you're an entrepreneur, I hesitate, I reckon almost everyone would have at least something about, it doesn't matter. We don't want to know what the course is, because the other thing that happens is sometimes when we get together, it's like, I've got this course, I've got this course. Then you get FOMO, then you go and buy that person's course. No, 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 no.
And then we haven't helped you.
We haven't helped you.
You have two
You don't
courses you
need
haven't
to
done.
share what it is that you're working on. And if you're not an entrepreneur, if you're I've got a personal development course, like, shameless plug for my stuff, the Mighty 90 and the Journal Masterclass, or anything of mine that you've bought, have you actually done it? And there's no shame if you haven't. As I said, we're not talking about the thing. And if you're listening to this and you're like, oh, I don't know if it really applies to me, if for whatever reason you want space to work on your business or on yourself. Like, another thing that I do daily is meditate, like close my eyes and use a mantra and whatever. And in this space that you come to, we call them co-working calls. If you want to meditate, if you want to journal, if you want to chant, like, as long as you're muted, you do you. You can have your camera on, you can have your camera off. But this is the space, equivalent of the gym, where you're working out your physical body, for you to work out your mental body, whether it be completing a course, creating something like writing a newsletter, doing a sales page. Maybe I might commit to finally writing a sales page, because they make me want to die inside. But something that you want the community, I'm trying to think of the word, like, just space that, like, they're doing it too. Like, if you go to a gym class, you look around, you're like, everyone's suffering as much as I am. But it's kind of fun, because at the end you can kind of feel that sense of achievement and that you're not alone.
Yeah, well, there's a lovely sense of showing up and having people waiting for you. They're cheerful, even though they're all going to be doing something that they've been putting off too. it's a good feeling to show up to those people and to be like, get something done. And the dread is always far worse than the doing.
I challenge everyone to think of something that's been in the back of your mind, a task, it's happened in the past that you've thought about, as you said, creating a Substack, having a coming soon page, some people a website or a landing page. For me, starting a podcast, I wanted to start a podcast for nearly 5 years before I finally did. And this is my second podcast. For those of you listening, I've got another one called Over It, which is still available, Over It with Christiane and Suzanne. That podcast was such a pomp and circumstance to make because I had to have it perfect. I had to have the jingle and the intro and the outro and whatever. Then I created this one in a tear in one afternoon, and we're approaching 400 episodes now. So it doesn't need to be done perfectly. It can be iterated and reiterated as you go. Allow this to be your space that everyone's going to be just happy that you're there. It kind of reminds me of like small kids when they see you. It's like, oh my goodness, hi. That, not like, oh, what are you doing? There's that clickiness that I'm just wholly unavailable for.
I love that you brought up the podcast because, I keep a 5-year journal. So when I go to, like this morning when I went to write about yesterday, I could see the 3 years prior because I'm on year 4. And a year ago I wrote, Linda and I met to talk about our podcast. We're really excited about it. We're not good at doing anything about it, but it'll get there eventually.
And now it's a year later, and you're in your second season. So
but we didn't start till January. Like, it took us forever to really get going. But yeah, once we did and we committed to it, we record every week and we get it out there.
And that's another thing I really hope that this space creates and curates is transforming the guilt and the shame. Because often when we do start doing things, people will go, if only I'd done this years ago or whatever. You weren't ready for whatever reason. You weren't ready years ago. But if you have the course or the material or the thing that you want to work on or create, podcast, book, whatever it is, and you feel the call, and today's the day, notice how your mind goes to like how much further along you'd be and whatever. But it is what it is. Now's the time. And I'm just thinking, should we spend a few minutes just talking about like how it works, like what's included? Do you want to explain it?
Sure. Well, we're going to have co-working calls in time zones that work for each of us. So Suzanne and I will each lead them, and we'll have 4 of those. So they're total 2 each. So we don't expect everybody to come to all of them. I may go to one of Suzanne's sometimes, but it'll be 7 p.m. my time. So probably not all the time. And mine are like 1 a.m. for you, right?
Yeah. And I think that's a really valid point for anyone listening. Don't make this perfectionistic. I can't go to all of it, so I can't be part of it. Neither of us are going to be going to all of it, and we are co-leading it. Trust that the ones that you do go to will be the seed and the impetus for you to actually get things done. And it's amazing what you can do in a focused hour.
Oh, for sure. And the other thing is we're going to be doing alongside you. So I won't be going to all the co-working calls for sure, but I'll be getting stuff done too. And I know Suzanne has plans for that. Maybe the sales page, we'll see. So we'll have that. And then we'll also have a networking call during the month so that, because this is going to be focused work time, but the networking time, you'll have a chance to actually chat and get to know each other and maybe collaborate, work on creating collaborations or anything like that. So we want to create that as well.
And I think I did an interview recently, it's probably not out yet, speaking about collaborations. Sometimes old me, when I heard collaborations, I would think that'd be something we'd need to work on together. So this Shelf to Success is a collaboration. Laura and I are working on it together. But a collaboration could also be you can meet somebody on the networking and they could go, oh, you're fabulous. And then they could share to their list something about you. You could do an email swap. Like a collaboration doesn't need to be a joint venture. It could just be how you promote each other, how you get to know each other and talk about each other to your current audiences. Like people might be listening to this in nascent eye roll and go, of course, Suzanne. But to me, I always confused collaboration with joint venture. And it wasn't until recently that I was like, actually, they're 2 entirely different things. And because the other thing too, in terms of co-working, I was chatting to someone because we launched this yesterday and they were like, oh, here we call that body doubling. And I was like, to me, body doubling, what came to mind is if you watch a action movie, what do you call the person who stands in?
The body double.
Yeah. So I was like, I don't get that. So, we're going to have an international audience.
Yeah.
Laura's from the US. I'm from Australia. The person I was talking to was from Canada. We have different names for the same things, but the idea is we have get it done time that we work on our things together. And we have the other type of, we have one networking where you can get to know other people and potentially promote each other's businesses, or maybe you could come up with a joint venture. I don't know. I don't want to promise that though.
Yeah, or host each other on your podcasts or whatever it is, you
Oh,
know. Especially if you're
yes.
creating a podcast in the group, you're going to want to line up some guests. So it'd be the perfect place to do it.
And if you don't have a podcast, perhaps you could start with a YouTube live or a Facebook live or an Instagram live. Like, start the opportunities really are endless in
Well,
circumstances like this.
to that end, I credit Suzanne with the reason I'm on doing any of these things at all, because when we first met, she said to me, come on, I have this thing that I've started where I interview professionals. Come on with me on video, I'll interview you. And I was so nervous, and we did it. And then I didn't share it with anybody for months because I was so worried that I didn't do well because I was such a newbie. But now I do it all the time, and it's because you made me get started, Suzanne.
Oh, thank you. And that's the other thing, the last inclusion that we haven't mentioned yet, we're calling them breakout room brainstorm calls. And the idea behind that is sometimes you get stuck or you get unsure or you have self-doubt. Like the number of people who credit me to doing their first interview because they felt uncomfortable being on camera. I love that. It makes me so happy because I think, the world needs to see us exactly as we are, unfiltered, unedited. But anyway, whole side note there. But these breakout room brainstorm calls, say you are working through your course. You don't need to mention what it is, but you can be like, okay, it could be something technical, like I've videoed it. How do I edit it? Like somebody asked me the other day, what do I use? I'm like, oh, there's a thing called Descript. And then you explain how it works. Or there's but not to be overwhelmed. Because sometimes when you go to these big calls where it's a race to the chat box and you ask a question, or you go to a Facebook group and you post, you get inundated with sometimes people giving well-meaning advice and mostly people trying to sell you shit. It's not that. It's kind of like, here's the stuck point. Like you could be like, I've got this video, but I'm uncomfortable sharing it. And I could say, well, what helped me share? So it's not a sales pitch. It's not a DI done for you, but it's if people have had a similar thing, how they moved through it. That's the idea. Anything you want to add to that, Laura?
Oh, I would just say even things like if you're setting up your newsletter and you're on MailChimp and there's something you just can't figure out, there's undoubtedly someone in the room who's used MailChimp. If I'm in the room, I've used it. And I know I had a lot of those moments, and I spent hours sometimes figuring it out. And it's so nice to have a group of people where you can just ask a question and somebody can say, oh, I can tell you exactly how to do that. You might not have time on the call, so you might have to connect later if it's something that takes a while. But having that is just invaluable.
And then it's just, as you said, there might not be time on the call, but you can make a time afterward to have like a Zoom catch up that gives you networking, connection, collaboration time as well. But also sometimes it's a quick screen share. Somebody I was chatting to just earlier today about Acuity, which I've used for years and I love.
Me too.
And she's like, why don't you use this function? And I was like, there's a that function? And she's like, yeah, let me do a quick screen share. And I was like, oh, I'd never seen that before. So it could just be that little thing that you don't need to then go and hire a professional and blow money and whatever, because it's to someone else just a really quick click and then, oh, you're done.
Or spend 10 hours of your precious time figuring it out, which I have done on MailChimp. So
well, you and I, because we're facilitating but also participating, maybe there'll be somebody who can tell us with a Google Doc how to format the photos. Like we could get our own questions answered in this space. So it's a space to ask the questions that you may feel dumb asking elsewhere. I honestly think there's never any dumb questions, and when I say that, I truly mean it. Some people say it tongue in cheek, because to you, if you're stuck or confused or unsure, it's not a dumb question. I had someone recently saying they were doing this train trip around this country, and I was like, I might sound dumb, but I'm going to ask, is it you sleep on the train? Because in Australia, you can basically go across the middle of Australia where you sleep, stay, the whole experience. It's not my jam, but to each their own. Or are you training it from place to place and then staying in a hotel? Because I'm genuinely curious. But, to someone out there, I was on your podcast recently and we're having a whole discussion of things we call things in Australia versus things we call things in America. You can, but there's context. So have these breakout rooms where you can have these discussions, or where you've put something out there before and it hasn't been received because people don't actually get what it is that you're saying.
Yes.
So sometimes just that tiny tweak of 1 or 2 words. For myself personally, I was in equivalent of one of these, they called it something else, in a thing a couple of years ago. I do a lot of guesting on podcasts, and the person was like, do you have a Spotify list? And I was like, I don't use Spotify. She goes, you don't need to pay to count, but basically go in free, create it, and then add all the podcasts you've been on and list of. I was like, that's so easy. Now, if you go to my website, it's embedded there on the media page. So that was just a result of someone's offhand comment in one of these breakout rooms, which has been really helpful for my business.
Yeah. Well, just spending time with other business owners is helpful, even if it's just so you don't feel alone and isolated, because it's pretty lonely.
Well, that is so true too. When you think about it, there's advantages to, being on your own, but the disadvantage is it can feel quite lonely. You don't have the water cooler or the coffee room or whatever to go and just debrief, or to just not vent, but just be heard, because, I'm sure we've all done it. You spent ages formatting something and then you forgot to save it, or your computer's crashed, and you're just like, as you said, you spend 10 hours trying to figure something out on MailChimp. Sometimes just having other people go, yeah, I get it. Or spend 10 hours making something, thinking it's the best thing ever, posting it on social media to be inundated with comments about your really bad spelling mistake.
Mm-hmm.
To have that validated and witnessed, and the space for that, I think, is really powerful indeed, because you're not alone. You feel like, oh, I'm the only one. You're the only one amongst millions of other only ones who are also working for themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot to be said for sharing those things so that you recognize that you're special, but not in that way.
So the other thing, last final things I want to say. So basically the 3 inclusions are the co-working calls, the breakout room brainstorm calls. So there's 4 co-workings, 2 breakout rooms, 1 networking, varied time slots, because we have, Laura's in the US, I'm in Australia. You don't need to attend everything. Like our aim,
priced it so you don't have to attend everything to get the value out of it too.
Our aim is to overcome procrastination and to overcome perfectionism. Because like when I go to the gym, I don't attend all their classes. They have like 50 a week. So I think I attend 3. So altogether, what have we got? 4. We've got 7 things. You could be like, and the price is 100 US or 150 Australian. We have a clicking point, so you can pay in either US dollars or Australian dollars, whichever, suits you. Either payment works. You don't need to pay both. Don't panic. How many would you need to attend for you to find that valuable? It's totally up to you.
Yeah.
And the other thing I was going to say is, it was something, it's gone. It's unusual. It will circle back in like 2 minutes after we hit stop.
Was it related to the gym? Because you were talking about the gym, and then you.
No, it was just, I think it's just, it can be confronting, I think, to sign up for something like this that doesn't have a clear, tangible outcome, like get you on the first page of Google or launch your podcast or whatever, because you might be thinking, well, what am I going to get from this? But I invite you to think about the things that you've signed up for, that you have a clear outcome of what you're going to get from, but you haven't got that because you haven't done it. So in terms of like the outcome from this, it truly is a choose your own adventure, and you don't even need to share it. So I'd encourage you, as you're thinking about this, in the month of October, what do you want to commit to completing, or at least moving the needle on? And you can share it with Laura and I'm happy for you to send me an email because I'm really curious, but don't use that as another step to either procrastinate on getting started or to beat yourself up with a big yardstick if at the end of the month it's not perfectly done.
Right. Well, and in fact, the way we've created this is that you have the power to figure out how you're going to use it. And so you can make it what you want to make it in terms of what you get done.
Yeah.
And maybe you'll choose something that's really challenging. So you'll get a smaller piece of it done, but it's enough to get you going. And maybe it's not hard at all. So you'll actually get a chunk of things done.
And I think it's up to you as a personality. Like for me, I have realized I do better if I have something small that I actually complete, check in the box, tick, rather than something meaty. Because often I will have intentions, like even something like creating a podcast if you've never done it before, and depending on what it is you're working towards, my first podcast took a lot longer because I didn't know what I didn't know. My second podcast was faster because I wasn't as perfectionistic, but also because I'd done it before. So if you're coming into this and you're like, I want to learn about SEO, and right now I don't even have a website, you might be like, well, actually, I need the website first because I can't drive traffic to something that doesn't exist. So I think many of us, we don't really break down the thing that we're trying to achieve into all the little parts that we need. Like starting a podcast, do you have a camera? Do you have a sound thing? Do you have a method to record? Do you have a platform to upload it to? You know, like all of these projects are multi-steps, but then people make it out like it's done.
That's true. That's how I've experienced Substack. Everyone said, oh, it's so easy to go from MailChimp to Substack. Well, no, it wasn't. There were a million steps I did not know about.
And I think that's the advantage of this space like this, because chances are somebody would have done something either the same, like I'm sure there'll be other people in there who have used MailChimp and are wanting to change or have changed, or something similar. Like I recently changed from ActiveCampaign to ConvertKit. So, you know, I remember they're like, just download the CSV file or whatever it's called and then upload it over here. I'm like, well, that sounds easy. Yeah, that took me an entire day.
Yeah.
And then sometimes it's kind of like looking at, is the thing that you're doing, are you the best person? There are times to hire or outsource, and there are times to be like, no, I actually want to know how to do this. Like if you're creating a blog, it might be better if you know how to do that so you can upload whenever you want to. Or if you send a weekly newsletter, like some people go, oh, why don't you just get a VA to do that? And it's like, well, because I want to know how to do that. But if it comes to writing an entire layout of a web page, I don't ever want to do that.
No, some things you'll never want to learn because you never will do them again either. But there are things that, if they're repeatable, it's very handy to know how to do them.
So if you have questions, if you're listening to this, watching this, if you have questions, if you're watching on YouTube, you can just chat it in the YouTube box. Otherwise, you can send me an email or Laura an email. My email is info@suzannekohlberg.com. What's your email, Laura?
Mine is Laura Gates-Lupton, and that's LUPTON @gmail.com.
Perfect. And so this is going in October. It's, yeah, as I said, $100 US or 150 Australian. The conversion may be $1 or $2 different depending on the day, but it's pretty much the same. And yeah, take those things from the shelf, from gathering digital dust to practical actioning. And I imagine, I don't know because we haven't run it before, but it's like when, back to the gym example, because it's so like a gym for your mind. Some people, when they start the gym, they feel better immediately and they, you know, their blood pressure goes down and they just feel amazing. Me, when I start to the gym, I feel worse before I feel better. And I often berate myself for letting myself get unfit and this is never going to happen again. And I might take it too hard. Like, you know, I used to be able to do this. So I really encourage you to come into this space, let it be what it will be, have it be this place of kindness and compassion for yourself, and be excited about what could unfold. Because yeah, I think this is something that is really missing. There's so many people giving you all the answers to the universe, but if you've got no time and space to read, unlock, whatever, it's
implement.
Yeah, we don't have it. Do you ever watch Stargate?
Yes, I have.
Do you remember the episode where Richard Dean Anderson, I can't remember his character's name, Jack, I think it's Jack, he got plugged in and he got all the information from like the ancients got downloaded into his brain. He was suddenly like super smart. We don't have that. We got to like crack open the textbook and start reading. And if you don't make space for that and guard that space like a garden dragon guards its gold, then, you know, until such a time that or the Matrix would be another one, where Neo's like, I know Kung Fu. Unfortunately, that hasn't happened yet. So the space for the doing is what this is all about.
Yeah. And it'll be fun because we're fun.
Of course it is. Well, we're going to have fun. So we hope that you have fun too. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope that you join us for Shelf to Success and banish perfectionism and procrastination and get the things done that you want to get done and see what we create at the end of a month together.
Yeah, it'd be so much fun just to see what we can do. Join us.
Awesome. Thank you. Bye for now.